So welcome back everybody, my name is Paul and I'm making another video to share with you all. I talk about a lot of different issues and today I'm going to talk a little bit about climate. I'm an old guy, I'm 65 years old, and I remember a time back in the 70s when they're all screaming about the new ice age was going to come and it was really cold. We had these big blizzards and all that kind of stuff, and oil was going to be running out soon too. That was another thing we got told. But, you know, over the years, different things happen, and you see this whole new thing that's been going on for a number of years now called the global warming. So, you know, at first I was really on board with this. I listened to Al Gore, and I was like, oh my, you know, oh man, the climate's, you better watch out, that Antarctic's going to melt anytime soon. And that was really kind of a crazy time, you know. But over the years, I've done a little more research about this whole subject, because there's a lot of really good information out there, and I'm going to discuss some of it today, and I'll give you another picture of this. I'll photograph this and put it in there so you can read it a little better. But basically what it comes down to, we all know, climate is a really complicated thing. It's been around for like, well, who knows how long it's been around. Millions and millions of years. The Earth has gone through all different kinds of evolutions, and we have a pretty good understanding of some of the basics, really, but we haven't really been studying deep under the earth and the climate for very long, really. Honestly, really. I mean, if you think about our country wasn't even fully settled until the 1940s or 50s. They got into Alaska and Hawaii and all that, and then, you know, who knows, I mean, what's under the soil in a lot of these places, and what's in the air, and who knows what the climate's been. So, one thing we know is that climate changes. That's the definition. It's just long-term weather. Climate changes, no doubt about it, and it has cycles. When we watched that video by Al Gore, they have what they call a hockey stick thing. At the very end, it's like, okay, well, if, and all these things if, then we're going to see the climate go skyrocketing up there, and boom, oh my God, disaster, the Antarctic's going to melt and all that. But that's nonsense. It's total nonsense, and there's nothing in the history of the millions and millions of years of the Earth has there ever been that kind of like a permanent, long-term escalation. It's always been cyclical. So I knew that something had to be really wrong, and whenever you hear, you know, the news, they try to tell you that a complex thing is simple, and then this is the way to think about it, very simply. Well, I know it's propaganda, because you can't take something that is complicated and make it just a one-shot deal, one issue. Let's take CO2, for example. CO2, I found out that over the millions of years, for the last 500 million years, believe it or not, the world planetary CO2 is almost the lowest it's ever been, believe it or not. And it was more, it's 15 times more when the plants grew really big and we had massive animals on the planet and so on. The CO2 was much more abundant in the atmosphere. Secondly, from what I read, only about 25% of the CO2 that's in our atmosphere comes from human beings in the first place. So that means even if we got rid of all our fossil fuel use and all burning wood and no firewoods and everything, and we got rid of all the 25%, you'd still have 3 times as much CO2 in the atmosphere anyway. So it's a bit silly. The whole thing has gotten way out of hand. Now, CO2 is beneficial. It makes plants grow. And another thing about CO2 that I learned is that in the long history of the Earth, the CO2 has gone up and down, and actually, if they look really carefully at the numbers and the statistics, the CO2 comes after the warming. The heat from the ocean has millions and millions of small volcanic vents underneath it. And they bubble up these gases and they go into the ocean, and the gases are used for, you know, the plant life and all the different coral reefs and so on, and it's a very important thing. Now, as the oceans warm slowly, little by little that heat comes to the surface, and then it gets distributed and it gets evaporated in the atmosphere, so the CO2 comes after the heating. It doesn't make the heating happen. If you talk about a greenhouse gas, water vapor carries far more far more heat than CO2 by far. And we can't say get rid of water vapor. What do we get to without water vapor? So I made this little thing here and I said, this one assumption, okay, you take the whole climate argument and let's pick one of the big things they talk about, the CO2. The theory is that the CO2 is going to cause the warming and the ice is going to melt fast. You know, if it's melting like a few millimeters a year, if the seas are rising a few millimeters a year, we don't have to run. You know, they can manage, you know. But anyway, that's the concept that they have. And the assumptions that go with it is that CO2 is a toxin and that climate change is causing these huge storms and that climate change can be stopped and all that. Now, I always propose this question. What climate action can human beings do that is 100% guaranteed to change the climate back the way we want? Let's stop the CO2. What can we really do? Can we stop the CO2? Do you see them making more and more diesel and car engines every single year, and mowers and more and more and more, millions of them are being made? You see them stop trading the oil? No, the oil's not going to go away. We can't use anything else for ships, for example, right now. It's just, you know, we need oil for certain things right now, unless we get some new inventions, and that's a whole other story because some of their secret technology we don't have access to. But for now, we're stuck with oil. Now, I have talked about this, and right away, you know, I'm not a big fan of political, you know, correctness, let's say. I'm very, very happy to be not politically correct. Because we have to start thinking seriously about some of these issues. If we're getting boondoggled into this, let's say we spend trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars and more restrictions, and you only take so many showers, and you can't burn firewood, and you no more charcoal, and all this stuff, if it goes that route, just so we can reduce the CO2 a tiny, 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 tiny amount. And even the scientists that are saying, I've listened to a lot of these people talk and listened to them with the graphs, the experts, I listen to them kind of digesting it for you here. It won't even make a difference. It took 150 years possibly to maybe get that 1 degree warming. 150 years, that's what they say, to have a net. But in the last 30 years, it hasn't been going up. The last 18 years, I guess it was, since 1998. There was a period of a little bit of warming, and then it has been cooling now. So it's cyclical. And it's not going to, if it took 150 years to get where we're at, if we accept that, how long do you think it's going to take to go cool 1 degree? How long? If the momentum is in this direction one way, and there's more population and more engines and more everything, we're not going to be able to stop it. No way we're going to be able to stop whatever's happening. Now, the rate of sea level rise, when the sea has all kinds of things, we can't control the sea. The sea controls the weather in a big way. The sea has a huge amount of influence on the weather. Human beings cannot control the sea. They can't. We can't control the jet stream. We can't control the aurora borealis. We can't control emanations from space and the magnetic field of the Earth and all that stuff. We can't control all of that. And all of those things have an influence on our climate. So I have a big thumbs down on the climate hype. First of all, what are we going to do about it? I mean, do we have to run for our lives? And you don't see, you know, a point I heard on the news on one of these online shows was that, let's supposing the elite knew that, oh my God, you know, carbon, we're doomed, Antarctica's going to melt, Greenland's going to melt, you know, seas are going to rise. If they knew that, if they really knew that and believed that, they wouldn't be building in Dubai. They wouldn't be building near the ocean anywhere around the planet. They would be saying, we're not giving you a loan for that stuff. We know, hey, you build in the mountains or something, you know. But they're not doing that. They're building more and more and more right near the ocean. Do you think that they really, really believe? Do they really believe it? That the sea's going to be rising really soon? No. So we're all being scammed. You know, I have a lot of videos about the media. I apologize for some of my earlier videos. I made a lot of, you know, I'm learning and everything, but I don't have a big budget here. I'm just a voice out here trying to put my 2 cents out there. Think about this climate thing. Anytime you have something rammed down your throat by the media again and again and again, think about it. What are they doing? There's some reason, there's some agenda behind it, and it's not for you. Now, I'll make some more videos about different issues, and another thing I teach for some of you who don't know, I have had a lot of experience in meditation and done a lot of reading esoteric books and religion and ancient history and so on. It's a passion of mine. And I have a lot to share, experiences and things I've learned, mystical types of stuff that are really practical and complicated, but I'll just give them in short doses here. So again, thanks for watching, I appreciate it. And I encourage everybody who has a little few two cents to put in to the mix here is to get out there and express yourself, and we can all learn from each other because we need the clarity and it's not coming from the TV by any means. So thanks again for watching.